are honored today to have Assemblyman Kevin Cahill with us today. The Assemblyman recently introduced the Domestic Violence Reform Act, and he's here to talk about it. Assemblyman?
I apologize for being late. It will take me another 50 years to figure out it takes more than 30 minutes to get from Kingston to across the Poughkeepsie Bridge, but that's the only time I ever leave myself. You know, domestic violence is not something that you have to experience to just say it's intolerable. It doesn't have to be part of your life to understand that it is just disrupting the very fabric of society all around. It is one of the last things that are left that still seem to be acceptable to a large segment of the population in one way or another. And you may say to yourself, it doesn't sound like it's acceptable, it doesn't feel like something that's acceptable, but think about it. Think about the way that society treats domestic violence. Think about the way that even the state legislature, which I believe is fairly sensitive on a lot of very important issues, has treated domestic violence. And I think you would agree that there's a great deal of room for improvement in the area of how we deal with this particular issue. No individual should feel unsafe in their own home. No person should have to worry whether going under the roof that is their sanctuary, their home, their castle, that they will become the victim of some form of violence, and maybe even extreme violence. While I am not entirely pleased that the legislature has moved rather slow on some pieces of legislation, there are some bright spots. 2 years ago, we saw some significant changes to our assault laws, escalating from misdemeanor status to felony status the act of strangulation, something that, believe it or not, is extremely common in domestic violence situations. That was an important step, an important recognition that the legislature made. We did make some changes to the way orders of protection can be issued electronically. Electronic issuance is now an important part of what our courts are allowed to do in the modern age. Finally, this court is allowed to enter the 20th century when it comes to that sort of thing. There's a lot more to do there. The possibility of extending an order of protection is something else that was dealt with over the past couple of years by the legislature, and we're now allowing our judges to extend orders of protection without a specific citation to an act of violence during that period. That's an important step, but there needs to be more. The legislation that I'm sponsoring would require courts to issue orders of protection for up to 5 years. Currently, they're only permitted to issue them for up to 2 years. In extenuating circumstances, in the cases where a felony conviction is involved, that order can be extended to 10 years beyond the completion of the sentence of the perpetrator of the crime. And make no mistake about it, the fact that it's a relative, the fact that it's a cohabitant, the fact that it's somebody that you know, and maybe even somebody that you love, does not change the nature of an act. It is still a crime. And that's one thing we have to get everybody to recognize. I really salute these women here today and the organizations that they represent for bringing this issue to the fore. It's unfortunate that we have to have this brought to our attention when it occurs. It is important to know that there are people in our society, people in our community, who care enough about it to not wait for the next act of violence to occur, to bring these issues for all of us to think about, to understand, and to continue to advance. I would be remiss if I failed to mention one of my colleagues who has been at the forefront of this issue, and that's Assemblyman Ken Zabrowski from Rockland County. Ken has done yeoman service, not only on the floor of the legislature, but as a private practice attorney to advance the rights of victims of domestic violence, and he will continue to do so, and I will continue to stand by his side. I thank you one and all for gathering, and I'll return the podium to our hosts today.